do you then use the 5 appreciations in the workplace?
No.
Because there's the 2 books. Yeah.
No, I didn't read that one.
Yeah. So it just changes things. Like, obviously in the workplace, Tiger, we shouldn't be using the touch as much.
It depends.
I mean,
how transparent we are.
I suppose.
We didn't set the boundaries.
HR is all over this right now. They're like having a heart attack with our conversation.
That's why they got a job.
But yes, there's the 5 appreciations in the workplace. It's the workplace version. And I have done this with teams because you are right. I hear all the time, my team just wants money. They just want to make more money. It's all about making more money, or they want a bonus system, and I'm like, do they really? Let's find out. Let's find out who wants that. And let's find out who also just needs you to say thank you. Or who needs just bring me a latte and a piece of chocolate, and you're going to get, another 2 hours of performance out of me, right? Like, everybody needs a little something different.
100%. Gigi. All right, everybody. This is Gigi from Gigi Practice Coaching. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Tiger. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I think I want to jump right in. What is leadership?
What is leadership? What isn't it? I think leadership is a really hard job. I think leadership is all of us and not just one of us. I think we have a tendency and not just me, have had a tendency to focus on who is in charge, or who is labeled as owner or manager or leader to be a leader, when in fact it's actually all of us. And so what is it? It is acting in a way that others want to follow. It is looking at others and helping them to do the best that they can and to see the best that they can. It is maybe providing the vision, the path that we're going to head down or towards, and then giving the tools. If you're speaking of it in dentistry or in a business, then giving your team the tools to get to that place. That's part of leadership.
Can I play the devil's advocate?
Yes, please
but
do.
I got to preface with, I agree with you. Like what you describe as leadership, I'm with you. What I hear a lot is, well, Gigi, it's easy for you to say, but I'm a dental assistant and I just got a role of lead dental assistant. I don't know what that means. I can barely get my own stuff done. I almost cursed. And now all of a sudden, I don't even know what my expectations are as a lead assistant. So I feel like it's a bloated word.
Oh, so you said, though, you had the key answer right there. So yes, lead assistant. I want you to be my lead assistant, Tiger. My job now as leader for you is to set the expectation. To say, here's what that looks like in my business, in my practice, or in my coaching firm, or your business. Do you think you can do that? Are you ready for that? And what would you need from me as your leader to help you be a leader? What tools would you need? What time would you need? What kind of communication would you need? We've got to set the expectation, or you're right. Overwhelm.
You know what I need?
What?
Pay raise.
Don't we all?
I'll do it all. As a lead dental assistant, can I get a pay raise?
Tell me the value that you bring, and tell me what value you're going to add that would warrant then the pay raise. Because if I'm going to put somebody in charge or in a role of leadership, of course that should come with a bump. But I also want to know, how are we going to measure what that bump is worth, and or what a bump going forward would look like?
Gigi, I'll give everybody high fives in the morning.
Okay.
That would be my value that I bring.
Tell me how. Tell me how giving somebody a
I'll be
high
super
five.
energetic. I'll be on time. If we start at 7, I'll be 15 minutes before we start. I'll high five everybody. I'll make sure that all the servers are up, all the air vacuum compressors are up. We'll be ready to go. And before that, a day before that, I would actually look at the schedule. I'll talk to all the rest of the dental assistants. And I'll make sure that we're ready for the next day. All the trays are ready to go. All the instruments are sterilized and ready to go. And we have enough supply so we don't run out.
I'm going to call that permission to play.
Okay.
That's the bare ass. See, look at now I swore. That is the
Now we have to mark it explicit.
That is the bare minimum what a team player that I want on my team, Tiger. Tell me how those things improves the performance of the entire team and your team. Tell me how you, as a clinical lead, are going to contribute to everyone's success. Yes, it's great that we can get the day started. Is that all your job, or are we helping other people to do that?
Now it's becoming interesting. Now I get it.
Right?
Do you see? Yeah.
Oh.
No, my point was, do you see, Gigi, like, I feel it's a mistake on both ends. I feel that a lot of people don't know what the leadership is, and they just call everybody in the office a leader, and that word is being overused, like misused, overused, and abused.
Yep.
And especially lately, like, everybody's a leader. I remember the days when maybe 10 years ago, the word family was overused. Like, my office is my family. My team is like my family.
Correct.
Luckily, we're moving away from that, right? Now it's a team, it's performance-based.
It's a community, it's something,
Right.
but it's not a family.
Right, but it's not a family. So, and I feel like now the leadership is being overused. And on both ends. Doctors don't know what that means, and they call everybody a leader. And people that are taking on that job, they think it's just going to be a pay raise.
Right.
Without anything that I need to do to earn that. What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of things, Tiger. This is like a loaded question. One, I agree. And I want everybody to be a leader, but what that looks like and how everybody shows up is going to be different. And we have to take into consideration everybody's style, gifts, talents, strengths. One of the things I think we do it in dentistry, but we do it in corporate worlds as well, or any other industry, is we take people who are really good at doing, which you described earlier. But I'll get there early, I'll have everything ready. That's a doer. And we will take the doer and put them in a leadership or management role, assuming that because they were so good at doing, that equates to being good at leading and managing, and it doesn't. So, because there's a lot of doers, right? Like we've all worked with a lot of doers. I described this in one of my workshops that I do called "Is Dentistry a Team Sport?" I ask this question, which describes a really strong doer. To your point, an assistant, though I'm not picking on assistants, but it's just easy to look at those people who are really good doers and then say, but they are drama. They cause toxicity amongst the team. They hoard all of the knowledge, or they do all of the stuff themselves, but then get frustrated with everybody else for not doing. And we make those people leaders just
For the
based
wrong
on
reasons.
for the wrong reasons. They're not equipped and or haven't been shown what the leadership piece of it actually should look like.
Do you think in a lot of these cases, they don't even have a good example within an office where they work at?
100%.
How to fix that?
One team at a time. One practice at a time. One doctor at a time. One coach like me and the many others that you have great conversations and relationships with. It takes each of us one practice at a time. And the people have to be willing, right? The doctor owner has to be willing. The managers of people who get put into positions have to be willing and open. But we have to find the people that are.
What do you think, from what you've seen, sets like, you know, the feeling when you go to the office, you visit a dental office and you're like, wow, like you guys are like a well-oiled machine. And then you go to some offices and it's like, wow, I don't know how you guys survive. Right. And both can be privately owned.
Yep.
And I mean, both can be owned by DSO. For that, it doesn't
Yep.
matter. It's just, it could be the same shit show since we're already cursing on this podcast.
Yes.
So, but what do you think sets them apart? Like, let's just say between the two private offices.
Communication. So I think the one that is, although we can flip it here in a minute. So the well-oiled machine that's humming along, that you're like, oh, this feels great when you walk in. There's an energy, a vibe, whatever. What I typically see is that those practices have a leader or owner that has set the expectation a little more clearly than most and talks about that expectation a lot, right? We all know, how do we show up here? What do we look like here? What does it feel like here? How do we take care of our patients here? How do we handle the phones here? And they're not just leaving it up to chance. And boy, I hope everybody knows what they're doing. The offices on that other side, the shit show, so we've spoken, can be really successful in spite of themselves, but they aren't as clear, right? My husband, so this is funny. I'll back up and answer this a little differently. Because I focus so much on vision and culture, like not even trying to overuse those words, but truly, what is this supposed to look and feel like, Dr. Owner or owner? And we talk about core values. My husband always says to me, like, why do you ask people what their core values are? Can't you tell by walking into their practice what their core values are? I'm like, but here's his point. If you walk into the calm, the zen, look at me, play on words, zen.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the plug.
Yeah, exactly. The zen, the vibe of a practice, and you're like, oh, this feels nice. This is great. This is good. They're busy, but they're also this, and this. Because you can tell kind of what's important to them, right? Maybe it's the patient experience, the team experience. Maybe it's all of these things. Maybe they communicate better. Because you can walk into another one and be like, they can say, and they can have a nice plaque on the wall that says integrity and kindness and all of
Lead
these.
by example.
And right. But they're not living it.
And doctor shows up 15 minutes late.
Right. So it's like, so you already know those are not core values to you, to that practice. So I think the differences I see mostly between the two practice styles are, one is more clear, even if they're not completely clear, and they communicate it more often than the ones that are just showing up every day and hoping all the things line up and that's not too much of a train wreck and we just are getting through the day each day.
How do you feel about dentist owners sharing with their team, like about, no, let me use the term transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's being overused? Do you think there's a boundary of transparency for the doctor owner with the team?
Well, in what way?
So everybody says, we would like to have more transparency in the practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does it mean doctor owner shares with everybody during the morning huddle and says, you know what, I'm really frustrated. I'll speak individually with some of you that I'm frustrated with, but just overall, the tone that I want to set is, I'm not really happy. Or another example, I'm really frustrated and Katie just drives me bananas. Like, would you ever come to the morning huddle on time? Like, come on, don't set the wrong tone for my practice. Or during the lunch meeting, the doctor owner says, oh man, like my life is a shit show at home. Kids, the dogs, my wife, she's killing me. Or my husband drives me nuts. Like, what are the boundaries for transparency from a leadership standpoint? If you're leading by example.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is typically my approach whether it's about how we're feeling, our life, our frustrations, or whether it's about numbers and metrics and KPIs, is that I ask our doctor owners, leaders, myself, to be as transparent as we're comfortable being, so long as enough that we are clearly communicating what our needs are and or what the values are or whatever is. And I believe in boundaries. But to me, that transparency and boundaries and vulnerability, I think, is different. So to me, what you're describing, Tiger, is a little bit more, can I either be more candid, which I guess maybe that's the transparency you're looking for. So having candid conversations, super important. And I coach and try to help our doctor leaders and our teams, because the teams have to be able to do it too, to be able to have candid conversations. We can have candid, transparent conversations when we have strong foundations of trust and we know the expectations and we are all working towards those expectations, right? And then we can have more candid conversations about the things that frustrate us. Oversharing about our personal lives or maybe even anything else is different. And so I definitely think we need to be boundaried. And I guess it's kind of hard to answer because I guess that the boundaries might be different for everybody. For me, I'm going to be open enough with my team for them to know that, hey, I'm having a rough day, or there's some things that are bothering me and I want to talk about some. Without having full disclosure in front of everybody what those things are, right? But maybe only pertaining to who needs to hear that. Nobody needs to hear that, my husband's frustrating me and the dog's pooped in the house. Like, nobody needs to. That doesn't mean I'm trying to pretend to be not having issues, but I can say, you know what? I might be a little quiet today. That's okay.
Can I tell you a story? Personal?
Yeah.
So when I immigrated to this country, I was a little culture shocked. So where I come from, we're kind of like, we're very known for being short and not very like smiley. It's like, we don't ask the question, how are you doing? We just say, hi, bye. That's it. We're done. And so I remember learning the culture and I was asked, like, how you doing? And I didn't know that I should answer good or excellent or fantastic or awesome. I just told the person, how am I doing? Or like when somebody says, how's your day? I just told, how's my day? Right? Straight to the point, like 2 sentences. And then later I learned that was also shocking that nobody really cares. So then I try to put 2 and 2 together to see, so you're asking me a question that you don't really care about. It's really fascinating. And then later on, I kind of applied that same thing to the businesses and cultures. And I can see how, again, maybe lately, maybe it's always been that way, that we have this theme that the reason I use that word transparency is a lot of people say like the leadership is transparency and sharing with the team, not being afraid, but we're often not told like what we shouldn't be sharing. And there's certain things that you need friends for, and there's certain things you need your family for,
Correct.
your parents,
Correct.
But not your teammates.
So I love that you can say the word transparent, or you should answer when someone says, how are you? Not really. And or what are those limitations and boundaries? Which again, I think limitations, boundaries, transparency levels are set by the leader for good or for bad. Right? I wrote down, so I don't think you should pretend. I hate those kind of questions, actually,
100%.
Tiger. I don't want to say to you, how are you today? And not mean it. I want to know, right? Now, do I want to know that you got, you stubbed your toe and you got your this and this is that and that's happened? Like, probably not in that setting, not in a work setting or in an interview setting. But I'm not going to ask, I don't want somebody to ask me and not care about the answer. And taking that into like the workplace where we've also been taught here. I don't know about where you're from, Tiger, but here it was like, you leave your problems at the door. When you step in, it's go time, right? You're on. You're on. And one of my teams, because I do such strong work with the doctor leader owners, ahead of working with the team about what is the culture you want to have here? How transparent do you want to be? And what does that look like? Let's define it so that everybody knows. So I don't just say, hey, Tiger, be transparent. And Tiger's like, oh, okay. And now Tiger starts telling us his life story. And we're like, oh, yeah, no, but not that transparent. So one of my teams put all these different little sayings to their core values. And one that I love is that they want a workplace environment to be fun, but not fake. And for them, that means we don't want you to be like, leave your garbage at the door. It doesn't have a place here in our office. They defined it by saying, we want to have fun. And we hope that when you come to work, even if you've had a bad time outside the door, that inside these doors, it feels fun to be here. But if you are having a hard time, we want you to say, I might not be super peppy today. We don't need to know all the things, but we need you not to be fake. So define it. We define it. Define what the boundaries are. Define what transparency looks like for you as the business owner.
One of my favorite books on teams is 5 Dysfunctions of the Team.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up because I forgot all the 5s. But one of my favorite is fear of conflict.
Yeah.
And
I do this work a lot, Tiger.
Right?
I do this work as a workshop. It's one of my key books that I give my teams.
That's amazing.
In my book.
So why do you think people are afraid of a conflict? Even though we know it's such a big driver to build the trust.
Yeah. Well, number one, I just think somehow the word conflict, the word itself, seems like it's supposed to be a bad thing versus a good thing that leads us, that we work through, not that stops us. So when I'm coaching like the 5 behaviors of a team and I do that workshop, one, I call it collaborative tension instead of conflict, because that's what it usually is, whether it's in a home, in a marriage, or a friendship, or whatever, or a work relationship. It's if we know what the expectations are, we have the same vision and outcomes that we want, let's just say for our family, then my struggles with my spouse are not against each other, but for where we're headed. But we can only do that and do it well and not be damaged if we have built the trust, right? Which is what the 5 dysfunctions are based on. The trust comes from knowing no matter what I say to you right now, Tiger, we could be in disagreement about it. But if we both want the best outcome to get to the results, to have the best outcome, the trust has to be built that you're going to respond in a way that allows me to share my point of view, and that I'm going to respond and act in a way that allows you to share your point of view. If we don't have that, if every time I bring a different idea to you, Tiger, you explode, you say that's stupid, that's whatever, I cannot, now I'm fearful. So now, because I don't trust that I can come to you with that, so now the conflict is, I am afraid of it. I don't want that. I don't want that response from you.
Interesting. I also heard the podcast yesterday. I mean, I was listening to the podcast, Building Trust, and they talk about, like, for the leaders, you need to have the skill of reading the room. And in order to do that, you kind of need to shut up and listen. So it's probably like the hardest thing, and even, I mean, I think for everybody, but just listen, being able to read the room. And if you ask something, for example, in my line of work, deadlines are very important. So if I ask somebody about the deadline, I can say, so how do you feel about June 1st launching this thing? And if the person says, it's fine, or, yeah, I think so, we should assume it's a no. And we should automatically say, okay, so what would it take to get a hell yes?
Yeah, that's
Like
a great,
like
yeah, it's
what are we
great.
missing? What are we missing in this? Or describe to me what would a hell yes look like? And
Hmm.
then the person says, well, if that's the case, yada yada yada. Or if you try to implement, like, let's just say, an ordering system in the dental practice, obviously dental assistants are going to be hell no, right? But then you ask them, so what would a hell yes look like? And then they would give all of their frustrations and answers, and you
Yes.
write it down, and you address them one by one, genuinely. So
Yeah.
I feel like I mean, dentists are funny, right? They're type A and driven, and that's what gets them
Yes,
through the
yes, they
dental
are.
school. And yeah, and they're incredible people. They're very
Hmm.
good at what they need to do and accomplishing things. But a lot of people genuinely lack these things, and I feel like it is kind of scary to go to some of the dentists to, like, open up and ask and be kind of like vulnerable, I guess. I don't know. What are your
Agreed.
thoughts?
Well, agreed. So I'm married to a dentist. I don't know if you know that.
No.
He is a retired periodontist. Um, and over the last 10 years coaching full time, and this is my 32nd year in dentistry, but it's really been the last 10 years that I have a true appreciation for what you just said about the dentists, male, female, doesn't matter.
Same thing.
The type of mind, the type of mind, the type of mindset, smart people that can become dentists and are the type of people they like to work in small spaces. They like to work in these little. They like things to be a certain way. The bigger picture stuff, the people-y stuff, is the harder stuff, and that's not their natural gifts, or they'd be doing something in that regard. So it's why GG Practice Coaching has such a heart for building a communicative
Commutative.
team around our doctor owners. Not so that they can abdicate that role of leadership and communication and being vulnerable and those things, but so that we as a team actually make it easier for them to do that when that's really outside of their normal comfort zone for many. So we ask a lot of those doctor owners to be. Now I've lost track of what your original question was, Tiger.
Just sharing the thoughts on this whole thing about, you know, controlling and environment, and dentists being, driven. And it's really hard for them to read the rooms and take
Oh,
the
hard to
time.
read.
And
Yeah, to read the
yeah.
room, because a lot of them, that's not their skill set, right? So they have to
Hmm.
learn. So coaches, again, like coaches like me who work at this stuff with them, to say, okay, so one, we got to get you a little more alert, a little more aware of your team, and team, I need you to be more aware of your doctor style. That's where we were going, Tiger. I was headed there to say um, I was headed there to say that I use a behavioral style assessment called DISC. I think a lot of people are familiar
Yep.
with that, but
Yep.
it's like, it just helps with communication. Like, what is my communication style versus what is your communication style? And most of our clinicians, our doctors, have a certain style that doesn't tend to be the majority, not super communicative, right? So we need to build that around them just as much as we ask them to build it for us.
Why do you think new generation of dentists struggle with leadership?
Well, so I'm going to flip it. I don't know that the new generation of dentists does struggle with leadership.
How can we assess that?
Well, I can only go with my own empirical data, which is, or maybe not so empirical. Here's actually what I'm finding. In the last 5 years, since the big COVID C word, my client base has shifted and they are younger, but that's demographically, right? The world is getting a little bit younger. So the working population is in that younger category. Those are my clients that are seeking out to be better leaders. Not my Gen Xers and my baby boomers. They all they had a different style of leadership. I'm actually really impressed with the younger generation of dentists and business owners coming out, because they're not coming to me saying, Jerry, help us just to be more profitable. They're saying, we want to have a better culture. We know that starts with us. Help us to be better leaders. So I'm not finding that the younger ones are the challenging leaders. They're the ones that want to be better leaders.
What makes them that way?
Well,
Why do you
don't
think
know.
it happened?
Why do I think the shift? Why do
Yeah.
I think that
Did they watch the boomers and they said we want to do
we don't want to
a
be grumpy?
180?
Yeah, we don't want to be grumpy. We don't want to be 10 years. Well, I think that's part of it, Tiger. I think they're like, I don't want to be 10 years into my career or my practice ownership and be miserable. I want to have, right? We all talk about this work-life balance, and that's a whole other topic of conversation, but they definitely want a different style of work and life and the mix of those two. I don't know. I mean, I have my own, millennial generation kids. And even one that's the one next one down was that Gen Y. And I don't know if it's what they've been exposed to. I don't know, for all the good and the bad of social media and access to everything, that, and or they just watch their parents and were like, yeah, not so much. I don't want to be like that. I don't want to work so hard and be grumpy and pissed off when I come home. We're just swearing away on this podcast. And be ticked off when I come home from work. I don't know, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it. When a young doc comes, that's way more fun when they say, teach me how, help me to be, versus I've been doing this a certain way for so long. I'm so annoyed now. I don't even know how to change.
Where do you think this misconception about work-life balance is coming from?
Well, what misconception are we talking about?
Whichever you think is the misconception. I have my own. I'll share with you.
Yeah, tell me yours then.
Well, I think it's missing. I think it's missing a third leg. So I talked about this on this podcast a lot. I feel like it should be work-life goals balance. It shouldn't be a work-life balance. And I'm an immigrant. It's easy for me to say. I don't want to speak for everybody, but when I immigrated, I had a perfect work-life balance because I had an alignment with my goals. So I slept for 5 hours, I'd get up at 5, go to bed at 12, learning English, going to school, going to work. I was as happy as it gets. I had no stress because I had my goals and I was working towards my goals. Everything is aligned. Then a different life stage comes in. I started a business, same thing. I started a family with the kids, same thing. So like, you can't just be work-life balance without the goals. Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I love that. And to think, because it's hard for me to not think like that. That's exactly how I think. I didn't put that third leg as it though, because I was just more like, well, I love what I do. I love to work. I love to reach goals, but I had not put that as the third leg. And so sometimes it's heavy weighted over here, and sometimes it's heavy weighted over here, and sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. But you're right. When like putting goals to it, that's really good, Tiger.
I had a lot of time to think about it.
That's really
almost 90 episodes of podcasts, and almost every one of them would talk about work-life balance.
Yeah, that's so funny. I just think it's so what I was going to say on the misconception side is that it's always like this, because it's not.
It's a dance. Yeah.
It's this, it's this, it's this. Like you said, there's that third leg. Like, okay. And you're right. Sometimes I'm going to travel and be super busy because I'm trying to achieve certain goals. In between, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then sometimes I'm going to rest. You asked me how my weekend was, and I said, actually, it was pretty restful and peaceful. And you said, what made it so? And I said, I think it was just for the first time in a really, really long time, I didn't have something else I was prepping and preparing for to be leaving again this next week. And so I could allow for some time to myself. And yet I'm also always working. But because, like you, I have goals and I have my own business, none of that feels like, not that it doesn't get heavy weighted sometimes, but none of that feels like I'm out of balance. To other people, it seems like we are out of balance, but they don't have the same goals as us.
That's so true. Yeah, they don't. I mean, people are quick to judge sometimes. Not everybody, but there are some people, and I feel like the place where I start is, yeah, maybe, but where are you going? Like, what do you mean? Like, what kind of book you're writing, right? So is it going to be a 1,000-page, 55 chapters book, or are you going to write one chapter and you're done? So I think that's where it becomes really interesting. I want to talk about culture.
Yeah.
I feel like it's another word that's being
Buzzword.
used and abused. What do
Yeah.
you think is a we're not even try to define good culture, bad culture. I think it's very subjective to a lot of offices.
Yep.
But how would one start with a culture? Let's just say even a dentist or a team member that listen to this and they're like, we got to do something about it. We don't have the right culture in the practice. So how would they start?
I give everybody another Lencioni book. I start everybody out with a book called The Advantage.
Mm.
And that book, I was introduced to that book about 10 plus years ago, probably 11 years ago. Again, same buzzword, culture and vision. What's your mission, culture, all of those pieces. But in that book, Patrick Lencioni asks 5 key questions, which basically are, why are we here? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why, Jerry, did you start GG Practice Coaching and Development? Why are you here? Right. What starts with why? What do we do? How do we behave? Who's got to do what? And basically, what's the goals? Like, what are the goals and the strategies? And so I start with that book with every team, and then I ask the doctor owner, because truly, us as business owners, I've got to set the tone for what the culture will be here. And that culture is going to be a reflection of who I am, of what I want, my why for even having this business. And then what do I want it to look like? I say to my doctors, because a lot of them are so analytical as well, that I have to sometimes have them just make lists, Tiger, of tell me all the things you like in a day. Like tell me things that you like. Tell me things you don't like. Because sometimes they can't articulate like, oh, I have this vision of this beautiful practice with this. They can't say those things, but they can tell me things they do and don't like. And then I say, I've heard you say that, for me, growth and development, that growth and development is so important to you. 5 times. Tell me what that looks like. Well, it looks like going to continuing education. It looks like reading books. It looks like listening to Tiger's podcast. It looks like, whatever it is. And I say, great. Is that so important to you in the vision that you have for your business that you would hire and fire based on that value, based on that behavior? And if they say no, then I'm like, then that is not a core value of your business. For me, it's first painting the picture of what do I want my business to look and feel like. Everything from physically, how do you want it to look, taste, smell, all of those things, to behaviorally, how do you want it to look and feel every day, to the type of dentistry that you want to do, if it's a dental practice, and not do, like, if you never had to do X, Y, and Z again, tell me all those things. And then I help them like just get it really clear. Like, okay, if that's what you want this business to look like, then what behaviors every single day have to be in place that will guide your decision making? And then you have to define them and define them for your team. Not what the Webster's dictionary says is whatever, because somebody will say, well, I want people to be honest. I would hope. But what does that look like? What does that mean? Because being honest to me might be very different than being honest to you. And that's how I start to like get those like core behaviors, those core guiding things that I say, you're going to die on that hill.
I really like that.
I will hire and fire by this belief. It's so important to me and how I'm going to live this business that if it's not important to you, I promise you, Tiger, you won't like being on my team.
Can we just do a quick segue on firing?
Yeah.
I really like this. I think over the years I've mastered the skill of firing. And it sounds horrible, but actually it's gotten so much better and easier. How do you think people, like, what recommendation do you give owners on firing?
Oh, well, define a little bit more, because it's not just like, oh, here's the thing on firing. To me, if we are clear on vision and values, truly clear, it makes the hiring and firing easier. I mean, although it's like it always feels crunchy, right? Nobody likes to do that. But when I'm super clear and we're holding people accountable, when we're setting expectations and someone is not meeting those expectations, we have to be having conversations with them about that. And then you decide, okay, listen, it either it's going to work or it's not going to work. They are either in alignment with these values and the expectations, or they're not. And have I given them all the tools? Fire slow, fire fast.
What's the conversation like? Like, what do you recommend people? Have you ever like asked doctors? I don't know if it's even legally possible. Like, record how they fire an employee and then coach them and work on this.
Oh my
The
goodness.
words they use and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can. It'd be really fun to try to record it. So my own coach gave me a tool to have difficult conversations. So I combined that tool. It's called the ARCH template. Thank you, Catherine Eitel. And I combined it with radical candor, right? Basically, the ARCH template, which is really like almost like you make a little script, which helps the doctor owner, if they're the ones that have to do the firing, to have, or to even have difficult conversations, because you start with the A is always something you can agree upon. So Tiger, let's say you're being late to work every day. And so then I might say to you, Tiger, would you agree, or I think we could probably agree, it's been tough for you to get to work on time. Or I could go farther back upstream and say, could we agree that being on time for work is really important to the team in the start of the day?
Yeah, Doc, and you're always late too.
We're not talking about me here. We're talking about you here. Well, I think it's great. Maybe, and then so maybe in that ARCH template also then comes the request and the acknowledgement phase of, and I probably haven't been a great example of that.
One of us is unfireable.
Right, exactly. I happen to own the business. So I help them with a script of like, what's the thing we're going to agree on about the thing we need to talk about? We need to talk about your attendance. We need to talk about Eugene. And then I pause. Then you pause, like, tell me about it, Tiger. Tell me why. Tell me what's going on. Well, yeah, it's been hard because A, B, and C. I hear you. My request is, so ARR, the request is that you are here 15 minutes ahead of our morning huddle, or 15 minutes ahead of the daily schedule for our morning huddle. That is a requirement for being on my team. And then what are they hearing? The C is, let me get clear. What have you heard me say, Tiger? And then what is the hope for going forward? So I use that template, whether I'm having just a coaching conversation that needs to move a team member forward, or the conversation that needs to move that team member out of my practice. We've had the conversation. Here's where we are with this. It's okay. I understand if you can't be on time, Tiger. It's just not going to be okay here. So here's my, here you go. I'm freeing you up. I'm freeing you up for your next future employment. Did I answer the question?
Can I add my 2 cents?
Please.
I feel like when you fire someone, that's when the true characters show up.
Of you or them?
Both.
Yeah.
And I do think both are very, very important. And how you fire, it's almost as important, if not more, how you hire. And I feel like a lot of people look at firing as like dealing with like ants in your garden. Like, oh, I gotta go kill them. They're annoying.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's versus firing should be like greeting friends at your front door. That's how I look at it. And so my 2 cents on this is, a lot of times when people fire, they just want to get rid of the person and be done and never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Versus what I'm trying to do. I'm not good at it, but I'm doing my best, even within my own team, is to like really sit down and talk about it and tell the person, look, like you can stay, but it's going to be so damn miserable for you here moving forward. Because it's just like we're both not happy. What's the point? Let's get you somewhere that you're going to be happy. But the next thing is like, so how do we make that happen?
Mm.
Like, you tell me, like, we're not happy anymore. How do we do this? And just have enough patience to listen and say, you know what? You asked for 2 weeks. Totally cool. Because you have a kid at home and nobody can watch her kid, you need a little bit of financial help so that you can find a babysitter to go and find another job. I'm happy to pay for that.
Mm.
You need this and this. Okay, but I cannot do this, what you're asking. So like, it's got to be a little give and take.
Yeah.
And then you put that on a paper and you say, we all agree on this? Sounds good. How do you want the team, let everybody else know? Do you want to have a meeting where we say, you know, Katie, you were so wonderful over the last 5, 10, 20 years. We appreciate you so much. Now it's time to move on. We can throw a party. We can throw a cake. Or do you want everybody just kind of like Friday at the end of the day, say, thank you, you're done? So like, these are the things that I think a lot of times people miss.
Agreed. I always try to do both, the hiring and the firing, or the rejecting, or the whatever, with dignity, right? With dignity. I think one of the things I've learned is that it's not making people wrong or bad because they can't hang here with us, right? And so that sounds like what you're doing is like you're giving dignity to the fact that like we're not going to stay in this relationship, but what can I do as we're ending this relationship to make sure that you still feel good about you and that you can go forward and do what you need to do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I actually, one quick story. One of my quickest fires was like 3.5 minutes. I had to time it. And so we hired a designer for our entire system. But the cool thing was, I was listening to something and like thinking about it. And then we interviewing this designer. I didn't have the right feeling about the person, but my team was like, oh my God, this person's amazing. We should bring him on board. All right. So I actually sit down and I was like, all right, let's imagine this doesn't work out. So we did the reverse prenup. Like everybody talks about prenup in the personal life, which I actually not a big fan of, but it's my personal belief. But at work, I'm 100% on it. So like now I do it with everybody. And it's like, all right, let's imagine this doesn't work out. How do we end this thing?
Oh, that's fabulous.
And then I just wrote it down and I'm like, okay, so if it ends 2 weeks, 4 weeks, okay, 1 week, okay, cut. Do you want everybody to know? Like, do you need access to this? Like, we just went through the whole thing. We both I included that in a contract. signed off. So when things didn't work out, we get on a call. I'm like, hey, let's talk. They're like, clear, it's not working out. And the person was like, no. I'm like, do we follow the plan or do we make some changes? We could follow the plan. I'm like, all right, cool, done. That's it. 3.5 minutes.
No, I love it. So listen, are you, oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to adopt that. I
Please.
absolutely love that. Two things, like I heard somebody speak many years ago and they said something that has resonated and stayed with me. This, the first time you feel or think that you should let somebody go, you should let them go. But we don't. Right? We hold on to people for whatever guilt reasons, and or because, again, the peopling is hard, especially in dentistry, as the owner. So there's that. Like, so I think about that a lot. So when a doctor says to me, I don't know, I think it's not this, and I don't really this, and I don't that, I'm like, okay, so we got two choices. I don't think that's going to get better, because usually the first time you know you need to end that thing, you need to end that thing. So there's that. I think you would love this book. Have you read the book Upstream?
No, I'm writing it.
Tiger, you're going to want to read this. And then
Is it on Audible?
I think so. Yes. The author is Dan Heath, H-E-A. I'm looking back here. T-H, Dan Heath. The book is called Upstream. And it really is about solving problems before they happen or at the source of where they happen. And you've just naturally done that. By having this question in the beginning, I think this is brilliant for every hire. Okay, imagine this doesn't work out. How does it end? How are we going to do this? What does it need to look like for you? What would you want? That's brilliant.
And I preface, I say, everything ends in life. And this relationship will end.
Yeah.
It could end in 2 months. It could end in 20 years. I'll be glad to end it in 20 years at this moment.
Yeah.
But it will end. So let's talk about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it's fun. That 3.5 minute example was cool.
Well, it makes it easy when you actually set the expectation, just like all the other expectations we've been talking about. When you set the expectation that, if this goes south, and it might, or if this ends, and it will at some point, how do you want it to look?
Yeah. And I think, Gigi, to that point, there's one of my favorite books is 5 Love Languages.
Yes.
So like, I think I'm like, act of service, and my wife is like touch. And so it took me a while to figure that out. So the same exact thing happens at work. When people say these damn kids are driven by money, that's not true.
That's right.
Right. So
that's right.
I do ask, like, so let's just say when that ends, how do you want me to appreciate you? Like, is it a financial bonus? We can talk about bonuses even during the work time, but when you're done, you've accomplished a lot of things. You make a lot of significant changes. How would you want me to acknowledge that?
Yeah.
Right? So like it opens up these conversations where then you can get to see the person, and then it's easier to manage them and guide them within your company to like, all right, that person needs a praise. That person needs to be kicked out of the team for 2 weeks to go on vacation because she's incredible. And she didn't take even a weekend off.
Yeah.
Right. So like, and some people need a little bit of extra in their bonus, and they're all fine. I'm not here to judge them.
Yeah. So, do you then use the 5 appreciations in the workplace?
No.
Because there's the 2 books. Yeah.
No, I didn't read that one.
Yeah. So it just changes things. Like, obviously in the workplace, Tiger, we shouldn't be using the touch as much.
It depends.
I mean,
how transparent we are.
I suppose.
We didn't set the boundaries.
HR is all over this right now. They're like having a heart attack with our conversation.
That's why they got a job.
But yes, there's the 5 appreciations in the workplace. It's the workplace version. And I have done this with teams because you are right. I hear all the time, my team just wants money. They just want to make more money. It's all about making more money, or they want a bonus system, or they want, and I'm like, do they really? Let's find out. Let's find out who wants that. And let's find out who also just needs you to say thank you. And, or, who needs just bring me a latte and a piece of chocolate, and you're going to get, another 2 hours of performance out of me, right? Like, everybody needs a little something different.
100%.
Oh
Gigi,
my
how do
God.
we, as we end this thing, this has been fun. Like this
Yeah.
50-some minutes just flew by. Like, if people want to get in touch with you, obviously it's on your website, but at what point, like, just define maybe like a situation or a practice or the owner, at what point do they feel like, oh, I can't deal with that anymore, I got to call Gigi? Like, what would that look like that you come in as a perfect fit?
I'm trying to think of, like, my perfect avatar clients are really the people who have either purchased a practice or transitioned into a practice, or purchased a practice they've been in, and they now have to make that practice theirs, and they don't know how to do that or what that looks like. Then you call Gigi Practice Coaching and Development, so we can help you define, what does this next piece look like, and then who are the players you need to have around you in order for you to get there. If you've been working you've owned a practice for a few years, you've sort of like, you finally feel comfortable doing the dentistry, you got some stuff, you've got some team, but you've never actually clearly defined the expectations and the work, and you're 5 years, 10 years down the road, and you're like, oh, but maybe we're kind of stuck. We've kind of plateaued a little bit because we haven't been, or maybe we're starting to have a little dysfunction in the team or the practice. It goes back to the same thing. I prefer to catch you when you're on the front side of that. But when you want to take your practice to the next level, but maybe you haven't clearly defined what that is, then I think we're really good with that.
Quick question, clarifying.
Yeah.
So if it's a transition, if you bought an office, do you help deal with the retiring doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Manage that relationship, the ongoing relationship of the ongoing doctor?
Yes. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
absolutely.
outgoing.
Yeah, of the outgoing doctor, and honoring, like, how do we honor the legacy that was the reason you bought that practice in the first place, and the team that existed under that previous owner, and then how do we then transition it to become ours?
That's awesome. Gigi, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Tiger, it was so much fun.
Yeah, we'll do that again. When we end this thing, let's stick around for a little bit. I want to get the books and a couple other things, but I'm going to click the
Plus, I
stop
want
in
to
a few
talk to my
seconds.
clients about, I don't have a podcast, but I want to talk to my people about Zen 1. I've actually talked about you several times now
Thank
since
you.
I was introduced several weeks ago. So I want to know how and when I should be sending my clients your direction.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit, but
Okay.
thanks again. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of great
pleasure.
energy. We could definitely help people set the culture based on this podcast, and
I hope.
yeah,
Not, give us
they
a
can be
call, right?
successful.
We can do it again.
Exactly. Just listen to this podcast towards the end. Thank you, Gigi, again, and I
Thank
look forward to
you.
doing this with you again soon.
Absolutely. Me too. Thank you, Tiger.
Yeah. All right. Let's stay here.